Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian, and I'm streaming to you live from beautiful Central Europe. I hope everybody is having a fantastic weekend so far. Hi Alpha Forest, welcome members. This is a members chat class. Everybody is welcome to watch. This is a question and answer session. It's a special type of class for our members so that they can ask me any questions they have about the IELTS exam, about the English language, and get further clarity so that they can master this challenging test and get high band scores. Of course, we will have an all chat class coming up in 90 minutes that will be speaking part 3, so hang around, lots to learn. Hi Andre, hi Kyber, welcome Jaineel. As usual, this class is brought to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS success, check us out there. And for general IELTS, visit us at gieltshelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. On both of those websites, we have lots and lots of materials to help you improve your English and your communication. You can find lots of answers to your questions there. We have a knowledge base, we have a blog, we have a forum. So make sure to use that. This is our academic website here. You can click that big red button to join our premium package. It's a one-time payment for lifetime access, so you can use it as long as you need to pass your IELTS with just paying once, and that's very beneficial, and it's absolutely worth it. Our goal is to help lots of students. So this is our general IELTS website with the green background. You can click that big red button to join our premium package there. And again, it's a one-time payment for lifetime access. If you're in Saudi Arabia, you can even register for your IELTS exam with us. Welcome Rashika. Hi Abhishek. Welcome Mahmoud. Hi Nick Hill. If anybody has questions, you can just send me an email to adrian@aehelp.com and I will gladly answer your inquiries. Now, our schedule. So February 20th to 27th, we will have the following schedule. So again, today we will have another class, part 3 speaking. And then 21st to the 23rd, that's kind of the usual. There's no classes. And then on the 24th, I'm back with speaking part 1. I will post this schedule on our YouTube community chat as well. And hey, guess what? A little bit of an interesting next week coming up. There's no class on Friday on the 26th. And that's because it's exam day. That's right. I'm going to sit the official IELTS exam here in Budapest so that I can refresh the IELTS exam myself, be empathetic to my students, and bring you some new exciting news about how my exam goes for the IELTS. And yes, everyone, native speakers sit the IELTS exam as well. Many teachers, like myself, will sit the IELTS exam, and they should in order to teach well. Okay? All right. And then Saturday, I'll be back with more classes. Okay? All right. Yeah, Kyber, the streaming software crashed yesterday at the end of the first class, but luckily that was at the end of the first class. So anyway, I will post the full essay for that. Okay, Kyber? Abhishek, I'm going to take the academic computer-based exam. That's what I registered for, the academic computer-based exam. That, of course, also helps us to design better materials for learning for our students so we can maximize your efficiency. Okay? All right. I always do a different one. In the past, I did the paper-based academic, the paper-based general. There wasn't actually a computer-based when I first started teaching. Now I'm doing the computer-based exam. So we do them all, and we encourage people in our company to try and do these exams so that they know what students are going through. And now it's my turn next week, so we'll have videos coming on that for sure. Okay, so you will see some cool videos on our channel for that. All right. Okay, we'll see, Kyber. We'll see. We shall see. Okay, so let's get to the questions and answers. Members, this is a Q&A class. So here's your chance to ask me any question that's been troubling you or that you've been curious about, and I will take it as a first come, first serve basis. Okay, so whoever asks me their question first, I will look at first. Of course, I will do my best to follow logic in the class as well. So if there are some questions that are related or connected to each other, then I will address them accordingly. Of course, I will follow a logical pattern. Hi, Kashirsha. Thank you for the good luck wishes, and Janil as well. Okay. Janil is asking, can we use part of speeches in speaking, like indirect speech? Okay, I think that's the first question, Janil, right? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so definitely you can, Janil, and being able to use parts of speech, both direct and mostly indirect. In some cases, you might use some direct as well. I'll show you an example of that. I think that's a great question. Okay, so okay. So Janil's first question here, question number 1 of the day, is can we use, I think a better way to ask this, Janil, is it beneficial to use parts of speech, indirect and direct speech, in speaking and writing sections of the Ielts exam? Okay, that is a good question. The answer is yes. Okay, you should have a good command of using direct and indirect speech, and when natural, apply it in your speaking and writing. Okay? All right. So I'll show you a couple of examples of where. Indirect speech is more useful for the speaking and the writing, just because I don't recommend using quotes in your task 2 essays. Okay? So use mostly indirect speech, okay, but you can, or you could, some direct speech in where? Where do you think direct speech could be useful to get some better band scores in your Ielts exam? What do you think? Okay, and I see there's lots of questions, so I'll try to get to as many as I can. This question was really good by Janil about direct and indirect speech. I don't actually see students using these forms of the language enough, and you should practice these, and you should learn to use them well. Okay, especially indirect speech. Where can you use direct speech? What do you think? Where do you think is a good place to use direct speech on the Ielts exam? Abhishek says speaking part 2. No, I would probably use indirect speech there as well, Abhishek. Okay. The reason why is because for the most part, we don't really remember exactly what a person says. And anytime that we don't verbatim remember what the person had said, we should use indirect speech. Okay. Janil says part 1 and 3. No, I wouldn't use it. In speaking, I wouldn't use it. Kyber, writing task 2 example. Yeah, maybe. It's possible. Okay. But that's not where I'm thinking of. There's one other place. I wonder if anybody will identify it, kind of thinking critically about it. Okay. Hi, Chabi. Mahmoud says when the speech is 100% on topic. No, I wouldn't use it. So definitely, for example, everyone, don't use do not use quotes on Ielts, or I should say in Ielts writing task 2. That's a mistake that many students make. Okay, so don't use it in writing task 2. All right. You could use some direct speech in, I still don't see it. Andre says task 1, good Andre, but not academic, general. Okay, that's where you could use it. So you could use some direct speech in general task 1 writing. So for example, something like the waiter was very rude. I remember he said exactly, if you are not happy with the food, then you can just leave. Okay, so let's say that you're writing, it's one of the common typical questions where you're complaining about restaurant service, something like that. In that kind of a situation where you're writing a narrative, remember students that task 1 general is a narrative type essay. And in narrative essays, that's where we tend to see more use of direct speech. So the example here, the waiter was very rude. I remember he said exactly, if you are not happy with the food, then you can just leave. Okay, so everybody got that? Okay, if you're talking about a complaint with the neighbor making too much noise or about some kind of sales experience and you remember exactly what the person said that made you so upset, you can use a direct quote. All right, just make sure that you're using it correctly. So know the proper punctuation as well. So said exactly, comma, space, open quotation. Okay, here it's a complex sentence, so I have a comma after the dependent clause, then the independent clause, full stop, period, and then close quotation. Okay, so that's where direct speech could be useful. Everywhere else on the speaking, task 1, task 2 academic, task 2 general, I would use indirect speech. Okay, so, but there are definitely places. Okay, so use mostly indirect speech. So let's say that in speaking, the question is, what is good advice that parents give to their children? Okay, so let's say that this is the question. All right. Give me an answer, members. Instead of me giving this to you, give me an answer for this question using an example and indirect speech. Like, let's say you have a part 3 speaking, and the examiner asks you, what is good advice that parents give to their children? So give me an answer to this and use a form of indirect speech in your response. Okay, so this would be an example of where indirect speech could be very valuable for your grammatical range and coherence score. All right. So give me an answer. What could be a good answer for this? Include a little bit of indirect speech. Don't overthink it. Keep it simple. Indirect speech does not have to be complex by any means. Just remember that the verb tense shifts back in time by 1. So if it's present tense, it moves to past tense. If it's past tense, it moves to past perfect. If it's future, it moves to present. Okay, so with indirect quotes or indirect speech, your verb tense always shifts back 1 in time, 1 frame in time. Okay. So what would be a good answer to this speaking part 3 question? What is good advice that parents give to their children? Okay, Chabi says, parents usually advise their kids to avoid problems with others and to work hard for their desired dreams. Okay, good. Now, Chabi, that's a great start. So I'll take that. So Chabi says, parents share important wisdoms with their children, such as advising them to avoid problems and work hard to achieve their dreams. Okay. All right, now give me the quote. Okay, so give me that indirect quote, Chabi. I'll give you the quote that I'm thinking. Okay. Growing up, my father had constantly told me to dream big and never give up. I can still hear his voice in my head. Okay. All right, so there is your indirect quote. Growing up, my father had constantly told me, notice the past perfect, okay, because it's past moving further into the past. So my father had constantly told me to dream big and never give up. I can still hear his voice in my head. Okay. All right. Alpha says parents usually tell their children to study hard and get good grades so they can get into college and have a bright future. Okay, Alpha, that's a good start. Now include that indirect quote and you're on the right track. Okay. Janelle says mostly parents advise their children to always be honest and positive. Okay, and then Janelle, add the indirect quote. Okay. Mahmoud says parents always take care of their children every day. Mother and father emphasize for the kids for studying and focusing on staying healthy. Okay, Mahmoud, also include that indirect quote. Kashirsha, good. So Kashirsha said, my parents gave me good advice. They said, never gave up and believe in yourself. Okay. Okay, good. So, Kashirsha, a little correction. But good. You have the indirect quote. That's what you're going for, right? So, Kashirsha says, "My parents gave me good advice. They had said, never give up, never gave up, and believed in yourself." Yeah, I know it sounds awkward, but that is the correct grammar, Kashirsha. So good. Okay. All right. Okay, good. So you get the idea. So that's direct and indirect quotes. Use them, practice them. Okay, practice them in your writing, practice them in your speaking. That will certainly help your scores. All right. Okay, let's move on to some other questions. So that was a very good opening question by Janelle about direct and indirect speech in the Ielts exam. So direct speech just for general task 1, indirect and all of the other parts for writing and speaking. Good, good. Very nice question, Janelle. Thank you for that. Okay. Let's see. Kyber is asking, how can I have smooth transition from hook to the background and to the importance? I'm always going off topic with it. Okay, Kyber. So the smooth transition, Kyber, is keep focusing on the topic. You have to have the right topic, as we've discussed in some email exchanges as well. So let's say that the topic of task 2, I'm just going to stay with the same topic as my previous question. Okay. So Kyber's question here is, how do I transition in the introductory paragraph without going off topic? Okay. The answer simply here is make sure to stay focused on the topic. Okay. For the most part, that's what's important. The controlling idea doesn't really come into the introduction, Kyber, until the thesis. Okay, that's where you directly approach the controlling idea, is in the thesis. For the hook in the background, you're focusing mostly on the topic. Okay, so I'll give you an example here, Kyber. So let's say that our topic is parental advice. Okay. So when you write a hook, your hook should include this topic, parental advice. So advice given by parents in one form or another. You can paraphrase it, but it has to be parental advice, okay? So try writing a hook, everyone. It's another, so Q&A is great. I also want you to practice at the same time. So give me a hook that deals with parental advice, okay? An interesting fact about parental advice that you feel will catch your reader's attention regarding this topic. Okay? Don't make an argument. Don't try to convince your reader of an idea yet. It's too early. Just an interesting fact about parental advice that you feel is an idea that will grab your reader. Keep it simple. So keep it to maximum, let's say 10, 12 words. The shorter, the better. Don't make mistakes in the hook. Okay. Rahul says, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Rahul, that's just a saying that would not work for a hook. Okay. It's off topic. How is that telling me about parental advice? Okay, so Kyber says parenting is not an easy job for everyone. Yeah, again, Kyber, yeah, it's okay, but it's not directly about parental advice. You're talking about parenting. Parenting is maybe more than just parental advice. Okay, Janelle says parenting effectively is a very challenging job. Yeah, that's okay as well. So, Janelle, you're also kind of closer to Kyber here, but I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's not bad. I think you could be more specific. Chabi says living depending on parents' advice usually comes with success in most cases. Chabi, you're making an argument. Don't make an argument. So keep your thoughts simpler, students. Keep your thoughts simpler. Andre says successful adults always have good advice from their parents. Okay, just take out the most, Andre, and it's a good one. Okay, so successful adults have good advice from their parents. Yeah, that could be a good hook. Okay, I think that's the better one I've read so far. So successful adults have good advice from their parents. Or you could say got good advice from their parents growing up. Okay, if we want to be a little bit more specific. All right, so successful adults got good advice from their parents growing up. Okay, the lessons taught to children by parents are key to success. Okay. That could be a good one too. So the lessons taught to children by parents are key to success. Or just another simple one that's a really basic fact is fathers and mothers advise their children every day or okay, so that would be another one. Fathers and mothers advise their children every day for their benefit. Okay. Alpha, parents need to be a role model for their children is again different than advising their children. Advising their children means like you should do this, you shouldn't do that. Okay, so it was a good question by Kyber because obviously it's a little bit trickier than it may seem at first look. Okay, so Ielts is not a university essay, everyone. That's I think where a lot of students go into the wrong direction is they think that they're writing an essay for a university class. They try to get too philosophical, too fancy. And for the IELTS, even to get a band 9, you really just want to keep it simple and you want to target the topic. Okay? Jaineel, very good. So Jaineel says parental advice is important for child rearing. Yeah, that's a very good one, Jaineel. Even simplify it a bit. Okay? So parental advice is very important for child rearing. Child rearing means raising children. If you don't know the word child rearing that Jaineel used, you could say important for raising children. Okay, so that would be a good one as well. All right, Rahul, good parenting advice produces leaders. Yeah, or produces happy children. Okay, Rahul, that's better. So, good advice from parents produces happy children. Okay, so there you go. Okay, there's I don't know, about 5 or 6 different hooks that that make sense and that catch the reader's attention. Okay, so there's lots of different ways to do it. There's a million different hooks that we could write for this. It just has to be on topic. Very clearly, the reader has to know, oh, okay, so this essay will be about parenting advice. That's the topic. That's what we're discussing here. Now we're transitioning, okay? So at the end of any one of these hook statements, we can say, okay, so what is parenting advice, okay? So the question from the reader here is, what do you mean by parenting advice? So the background, Kyber, is made up of 2 elements. It's made up of a definition and then the importance, right? Here we can first define what it is, okay? So what do you mean by parenting advice? What is that? What's the definition of that? So can you define this for me, members? Can you define parenting advice? What is parenting advice? Okay. Think about your own parents. Think about the parenting advice that they have given you. And think about what that is. And then give me a definition. Okay. Let's see who can come up with a good, clear definition of parenting advice. Very good, Chabi. I see a good one right off the bat. Chabi says, Chabi, by the way, is satisfying times. I can either go with ST or Chabi. Satisfying Time says, passing life experience to the younger generation. Yeah, so good. Chabi, you want to put that into a sentence, but absolutely. So parents give their life experiences and the lessons they have learned from those to their children. So that's one part of parenting advice. Absolutely. That's a part of the definition. I agree. Yeah. What else is it? So what else is parenting advice? So Alpha says it's guidance given to children when they're growing up. Good, Alpha Force. So if you combine yours with Chabi's, you're on the right track. So parents guide their children while they are growing with their own lessons from their life experiences. See, Chabi, Alpha Force, how if you start to combine those two, you start to get into a good definition. Okay. Mahmoud, that's the importance of the question. That's not the definition, or that's the importance of the topic. That's not the definition of the topic. So Mahmoud says, to be successful in life, every human should consider their parents' advice. Yeah, that would be the importance. That's coming next. That's the, well, why is it important to talk about parenting advice? That's the next question, Mahmoud. Okay. So Abhishek says it's suggestions provided by parents that help children to adapt to their environment. I think that would be better, Abhishek. Janil says mothers and fathers work around the clock through verbal communication and by example to aid the development of their children. Yeah, Janil, careful here because being a role model is not the same as advice. So yes, I get what you're saying, Janil. It's like do what I do, do what I say. I'm leading by example, but that's going off topic. So that's being a role model. Here, the topic is simply parenting advice. So don't broaden the topic, okay? All right? Okay. Again, to be a successful human being, you're going into the importance of the question. So here, I'm simply saying, what do you mean by parenting advice? I'm not asking why are we talking about parenting advice. So good advice from parents produces happy children. Mothers and fathers continually instruct their kids with lessons learned from their own life experiences, as well as expectations of society. Okay, so that's what I would say is the definition of parental advice, right? Mothers and fathers continually instructing their kids with lessons learned from their own life experiences as well as expectations of society, right? Some parents didn't really study hard, but they learned that that would have been good, and also they know that society continually expects that. So I'm always still just focusing on parental advice. What is that? Okay. Okay, so yeah, Kyber, as long as you're focusing on it, you'll come up with these definitions. Everybody sees that? Now I can go with the importance, okay? So why is it important to discuss this? Okay, now my hook kind of answers that already, but I can certainly clarify that further. So here, I want to answer why is it important to discuss parental advice, okay? And now I can use some of the suggestions where you said people grow up to be successful human beings, okay? Children who follow their parents' wisdoms generally tend to be successful adults. Okay? So that's why it's important to discuss it. All right? So have a look here from the start to finish. Throughout the whole concept, I'm looking at parental advice. So good advice from parents produces happy children. Mothers and fathers continually instruct their kids with lessons learned from their own life experiences, as well as expectations of society. Children who follow their parents' wisdoms generally tend to be successful adults. And then comes my thesis. Therefore, I don't know what the controlling idea of this question is because it's not a full question. It's just the topic that I chose here. But you get the idea. Everybody clear on that? So really focus on the topic. Okay, focus on the topic. Don't overcomplicate. Just focus on the topic, and it will connect. Information should always connect information first. One of the very common mistakes by students when they're writing is they think that words like therefore and to begin with and on one hand, on the other hand, is how you join ideas. It's not true. Okay, in good writing, information joins information. So when you have information which is linked to the following information, you don't even need a lot of these transitional words. In fact, very good writing from recognized authors will often not use too many of these transitional words because they just have such a nice flow of information. Okay, is everybody clear on that? And that's not just in English, that's in your own language as well. So transitional words are kind of shortcuts or cheap ways to transition among ideas. When you have really good ideas, really good writing, you can omit most transitional words like to begin with and first of all, because they just look like unnecessary fillers. Okay? All right? If you think about a book that you've read, a good book that you've read, you realize that there wasn't too many transitional words in that book. It just flowed. The information just flowed. Okay. All right. Everybody's clear. Good question, Kyber. All right. So I'm a little bit slower on your questions today, but these were some really good couple of questions to start with. I'm going to try to pick up a bit of speed here so I can cover a couple more questions. I know that you have a lot of inquiries. Students, you can always send an email as well. We'll try to get to them. Okay. All right, let me see who's next. Kyber, I see that there was another question from you, but I'd like to get to other students. Mahmoud says, how can I improve my listening, especially for listening part 4? Yeah. Okay, Mahmoud, it's a very good question. All right. So one way to do it. Okay, Mahmoud. So that's a good question. Another good question. Really good questions today, students. So good question by Mahmoud. Mahmoud's asking, how can I improve my listening, especially for part 4? Yeah, which is more challenging, right? Well, first of all, okay, so part 4 is a very holistic piece of information like a lecture. Okay, so you have to focus on listening to an entire, let's call it a story or topic, such as TED Talks. And then summarize it. Okay, using good visualization is very helpful. Okay, for Band 9 students, often some answers in part 4 will be post hoc. Okay, so Mahmoud, good question. Yeah, in the listening part 4, it's usually a lecture. It's sometimes very fast. It's a specific topic, like talking about Isaac Newton, talking about the loggerhead turtle, the T-Rex, and the professor is just talking. So it's kind of like what you would experience in a university class. So for those of you who are going to study abroad in universities, it's really important to be able to do a good job in part 4 of listening, because that's what you can expect in your school. In fact, even faster and more detailed topics. So what you have to do, and you have to multitask. So you have to be able to listen and you have to take notes at the same time. And in order to do well on that, it's a little bit different than part 1, 2, and 3, because part 1, 2, and 3, it's kind of like you're listening, you hear the answer, you give the answer, okay, you hear the next answer, you give the answer. But part 4 is kind of like you're listening, oh, there was that answer, and then you answer, you're listening, oh, and I missed that answer, that's okay, I'll come back to it, I just heard that answer. And then you get to the end and you go back and you go, okay, I remember that this is what the professor said at this time, so this would be the correct answer for this. So even a Band 9 student on the Ielts for part 4 isn't necessarily answering the questions in a linear fashion, but they're listening to all of the information, and then at times they will fill in the holes once they've completed their listening. So one exercise that you can do, Mahmoud, is listen to short TED Talks and write a summary afterwards. That will train your ear to kind of listen, record the information in your head, and then be able to recite the information. And that's kind of what you want to practice, okay? So, so TED Talks, then summarize it, okay? Listen. So try this exercise, Mahmoud. Listen to online university lectures. There are some on YouTube as well. Take notes while you listen, and then verbally summarize it. And record it on your phone. A very important step. Then watch the lecture again and see if you missed any important points or misunderstood any points. Okay? All right? So Mahmoud, you can try that. That was a really good question. Yeah, because part 4 is a fair bit different than part 1, 2, and 3. Okay? All right. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, lots of questions today. Wow. All right, maybe I'll put in an extra question and answer session next week. I'll think about that. Okay, so Kashirsha says, it always takes me too long to write an introduction. How to come up with a good hook ASAP? Okay, Kashirsha, so that's kind of related to what Kyber was asking. So focus on the topic, identify, Kashirsha, the topic right away, and then ask yourself, what could I read about this topic? What kind of a statement or fact can I read about this topic that would make me interested to read about it or to watch a movie about it? So what kind of the title of a book or title of a movie on this topic would make me excited to continue reading or to start watching? Think about that, and that should help you, okay? Visualize it. Use your own experiences, Kashirsha, okay, for that as well. Abhishek says, academic tasks to examples should be in present or past tense. Abhishek, completely depends on the question. It could be past, it could be present, it could be future, it could be past perfect, present perfect. It really depends on the question and on what you're writing. There is no standard for that, okay? So it could be any one of those, all right? Rahul saying, some tips for multiple choice questions in the listening and reading. The most important tip, Rahul, for multiple choice is that you have to think about the answer on your own and then find the matching, okay? So the most important tip for multiple choice questions in listening and reading is that you have to think of the answer on your own first, and then choose the best matching answer. If you are, so Rahul, if you are just staring at the choices, hoping that one of them will appear to be correct, you're putting yourself into a very difficult situation, and you're putting yourself in a situation where it's easy to make a mistake. Okay, so you have to really focus on coming up with the right answer on your own first and then matching it. That's why I always tell students, don't read the choices before you think about the answer on your own based on the question, okay? So do not read multiple choice question options before you think of the answer first. It's very dangerous to do that, okay? If anybody's taking TOEFL, that's lesson number 1, all right? Okay, everyone, those were some good questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to more today. It was just some really heavy and important questions by some students right off the bat. So hopefully that's helpful nonetheless. And of course, we'll have more question and answer sessions for our members in the future as well. If you have a question that's really important, you can always ask on our website. So if you go to aehelp.com, actually, let me just show you that real quick. So in gieltshelp.com as well, a really good place to look for answers is in our blogs and on our forums, okay? So when you're logged into your My Student account on the website, and you just logged in at the top, then you have these options here. You have the forum, you have the blog, and you have the Contact Us knowledge base. So use those as well, okay? Because if you have some questions, it's likely that somebody else does too, okay? All right, everyone. So thank you for your inquiries. I appreciate that. And I will be back in about 40 minutes with speaking part 3. Everybody will be able to join that chat, so not just our members, but everyone. Make sure to hang around, and I look forward to seeing you. So I'm Adrian. I'm signing out from Europe for now. See you shortly. Bye.